Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hands On CISO podcast. My name is Adi, and today we'll be talking to Scott Huntley, Director of IT and Security at SET SEG. Scott has over 40 years of IT infrastructure experience and spent 6 years in the US Navy as a data systems tech, working on ship-to-ship and ship-to-air data communications. He worked his way up to tech lead, transitioned to manager, and is now Director of IT and Security. Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Okay, so Scott, before I go into what it is that you do today, I'd love to hear how did you even come across security? Like, how did that start?
I've been doing this job for a long time and I've worked my way up through the ranks. And I always kind of played on the periphery of security. My real big background is servers and operating systems. I started with Novell, networking and Windows Active Directory, but I was always the guy on the team that interfaced with security teams. Somebody had to make sure our systems were being patched. Somebody had to make sure that the virus definitions were being passed out and all that. So I kind of really worked very closely with security teams over the years. And a couple of years ago, opportunity came up to join SET SEG, and I got here, and one of the first things they said is, we're developing a security program. Didn't really have anything in place, so that's going to be on your radar. So basically, that was my first introduction into actually being in a security role. So, worked with our CIO at the time, and we started putting in a security awareness training program. So we started training our users on this is a phishing email, this is that. And the company has really embraced IT security from the top down, which is really what has to happen in the world. If senior management doesn't embrace it, then your program's not going to go anywhere. So started training, sending out phishing tests. We sent out a picture of a puppy that was supposedly lost in the neighborhood, and the link was trying to get you to click on the puppy picture, and about half the company failed. But that was that awakening that they needed, that this is kind of serious. So, after we got done with getting the security awareness training put in place, started writing policies. So much of what we do is policies. So all these different policies, started building our program based on these. And there's the technical aspect too of making sure that we have everything locked down. So yeah, that's how I got into it. Kind of a long story. I'm relatively new to the official security role, but I've learned a lot.
But you were always next to it, sort of.
I was always next to it, right? I was always the guy that whatever major breach happened, the security guy came running up to my desk and he's all out of breath. He had run up 3 flights of stairs and he's like, we got this major vulnerability and, going on and on and on. And I jumped onto our tool, ran a report and showed him, oh, look, we missed one server with that patch last month, so I was always that guy making sure that we were protected.
So you were kind of doing security, you just weren't called security.
I just wasn't called security, right? I've never written a firewall rule in my life, but that's okay. I don't need to write firewall rules. I have people that are way smarter that can do those kinds of things for me.
Very cool. And what does your day today look like now?
I'm like one of the first people to arrive at the office every morning. And so I get here and I got a plan in my head, here's what I'm going to tackle today. And then, that old saying, all battle plans go out the window at first contact. Well, that's kind of how my day to day goes. So, I go into the day, think I'm going to work on this, or I've got this policy I need to tweak, or this document I need to review and stuff like that. So I get in and look at email and see what came in overnight, jump on our ticketing system, see what tickets might have come in overnight, what kind of alerts might have come in overnight, just kind of set up the day. Then we hold a morning stand up with my team just so everybody gets a chance to know what everybody's working on. And then we kind of start attacking the day. And maybe something comes up and I've got to run an investigation. Maybe there's a new application somebody wants to bring in. So I've got to spend some time vetting a new vendor or a new application. Everybody's got the world's greatest new product, solve all my woes and everything, weed my way through those. But security is just part of my role. Being in a relatively small company, we wear lots of hats. We make sure that the printers are working. We make sure the copiers are working. We make sure that the physical security systems are working. It's just day to day. That's what keeps it exciting. No 2 days are the same. And at the end of the day, I go home and think, I didn't do anything I thought I was going to do this morning. So we'll get at that tomorrow. Occasionally, I can work on that policy that I want to do.
Nice. I see cybersecurity constantly growing. There's a lot of new things happening all the time. How do you balance out such a busy schedule and also staying up to date with who got breached today and what new technology exists, all of that stuff?
That's the biggest challenge right there is keeping up on everything. If there's a major breach here, I'm in the Michigan area, I'll get people filing in my office doors. Hey, did you hear about this company? Did you hear about that company? And so I feel like I got to kind of keep up on that. But you read a lot, you do podcasts. We have a local ISC squared user group. I go to that every month. So I'm talking to my peers. There's conferences. I sit on a couple of statewide committees for cybersecurity and education, so I'm talking to people in education monthly at least. We get subscribed to the CISA alerts, so those come in all day. You're just taking in so much information, and you have to really kind of figure out what is the key piece of information that I need to be looking at. And then keeping up on technology trends, with the explosion of AI, I feel like there's so much there that is going to offer security. You look at like Twitter, you look at blogs, you look at all kinds of different stuff. And a lot of times you just kind of scroll and if something catches your eye, then you got to dig in and spend some time in the evening digging in at home. It's a battle.
And how much does AI, how disturbed are you by it, of its effect on cybersecurity? Like, how much are you even thinking about it?
I think about it a lot, but I think about it in terms of how can it help us and how can it help us go faster. A lot of the security tools are starting to say that they're using AI to scan our networks or to monitor our firewalls and come up with alerts and things like that. So I think it'll be good as the world keeps going faster and faster. People don't have the time and the bandwidth or the capacity to dig in as far as they really need to be digging in, looking through logs and that. So that's where I think AI is going to really help cybersecurity. But you still need to have that solid background to understand what is being told to you so you can say that is a concern, that's not a concern. So I'm excited about AI. Every company's, their most important asset is their data. Well, first their people, then their data. AI has the potential of compromising the data. So that's the part that I'm concerned about is somebody having good intentions suddenly releasing a bunch of our data to the world. They want to analyze a spreadsheet, right? So they throw the spreadsheet into ChatGPT and analyze it. And all of a sudden now that data is no longer our data. It's now out there in the wider world. We wrote an AI policy earlier this year. We rolled it out to the company. We've had training. We've spent a lot of time talking about it. And it's like, if you're going to use a tool, come talk to me. Come talk to your manager. I want to make sure that nobody's intimidated to walk in my office and say, hey, I want to use this, or, you're not going to believe what I just clicked on.
Interesting. When you look at the security of the company, how much is it about educating the employees and teaching and explaining and just making sure they understand? And how much is it about putting actual blocks, like making sure they don't accidentally do anything and nothing can happen by accident?
Technology will only protect us so much. We can have all of the controls in place. We can have all of the rules in place. And somebody clicks on an email and releases their credentials. And it's done, right? So I tell everybody if something comes up, we have a lot of iPhone users. So if there's a breach or a security concern on iPhones, I'll write it up and send it out to the team and say, just for your awareness, this is out there. But I always say that cybersecurity is a team sport and that we need to be partners. I need to be partners with my peers, and I need to be partners with the executives, and I need to be partners with the end users. Everybody in the company has my cell phone number. I'm like, you call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm always going to answer the phone. And I would rather wake people up and start attacking a problem half an hour after you released your credentials as opposed to 6 weeks after you've released your credentials, right? I can control it. The sooner you let me know, I can control it. We've really spent a lot of time educating our users. We're kind of competitive. We have a quarterly meeting, and in the quarterly meeting, we have a security drawing. So if you've passed all your phishing tests, if you've done all your phishing training, if you've reported a phishing test, then you go into the pot for a drawing and you get a $50 or $25 gift card to wherever you want, right? So people want to know that they're in that drawing. We just take it seriously. Now I'm even transitioning to, what we're teaching you here at work and what we're teaching you here to protect us, SET SEG, it works at home too. So start teaching your family about this stuff and training them how to not click on a phishing email. Because I don't want to have you lose everything in your checking account because somebody in your family did something. This is real world. This is not just for us. This is for you too. So like I say, as long as our executive director totally buys in, totally supports it, and people know that it's important to him, it's important to us, it's important to them.
Amazing. Do you ever need to be like the bad cop, like the person saying you can't use this, you can't do that?
No, I don't feel that way here. I've worked with companies where the security motto is always, we're not happy till you're unhappy. That's not how I try to attack it. It's what do we have to do to get to yes, is the way I always look at it. What controls do we have to put in place? What do we need to do to get to yes so you can do what it is you think you need to do? So I don't feel like I'm the bad cop. They know that I'm coming at this from a position of concern and that we want to try to get to yes. We just have to get there. And what do we have to do to get there?
Amazing. Who's on your team? Like, do you have a group of people who are doing security, or is it you that is doing most of it?
Security is the biggest focus, but like I said, I've never written a firewall rule, so I have people on my team that do that. The biggest part of my job is the infrastructure part, not necessarily the security part. So we maintain all of the servers, all the switches, the routers, firewalls, copiers, desktops, laptops, iPads, cell phones. If it's electronic and it's got an IP address, my team maintains it. So everybody's doing security. The senior people are doing a lot more security. They're making sure our firewalls rules are being written properly and that our network is all being taken care of properly in that. So the higher you go, the more you get into that security realm. But then they're still making sure that our servers are worked and our servers are patched and all that stuff that goes into the maintenance. So we wear a lot of hats. And that's one of the things about a small company. I've worked for billion-dollar companies where you're just very siloed and it's like, this is your world and you don't go outside of that world because they got a world and they've got a world and you got all these worlds are working together. And in a company like this,
So you do a lot of different things.
we do a lot. We do a lot. We just reorganized the office and half the people got a new desk and I was helping move desks a couple weeks ago. Whatever we have to do is what we do. So
Amazing. What would you say is one of your big challenges right now in the security hat?
really just the amount of data coming at me every day. And not so much data as far as what's in our firewall logs and stuff like that, but it's just the amount of data that, here's the latest breaches, here's the latest mitigations, here's the latest trends. Trying to keep up on all of that is probably the biggest challenge. I always feel like I don't know enough, and it's like I didn't know enough about that. And then I was on vacation and that CrowdStrike thing hit. I'm getting texts from my boss, do we have CrowdStrike here? And I'm like, why? I've kind of checked out for a day or two here, but okay, let me see what's going on. Why would she be asking me that question? And so I better start digging in, so now you're sitting in an airport on your phone trying to figure out what's going on in the world. That's the biggest thing, is just keeping up on everything. And I just never feel like I've done enough. But there's always something else, another article to read or another discussion to have. So you just got to keep plowing forward.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like one of the things a lot of people who do security that I've spoken to talk about is because you're always so like on, it's a lot of stress. Stress management is a lot of where their mind is. Like, how do they make sure they can keep it up, sort of, which is interesting.
Yeah, no, stress. I have a unique tolerance for stress. I was 19 years old and standing in combat on an aircraft carrier, and I had an admiral pulling on my shirt sleeve asking me when the link was going to be back up and that. So I started young, and I don't know, it just kind of, I have a high stress tolerance. So I'm lucky in that aspect that I deal with that well.
I'm very lucky. That's cool. I bet it's also good in other like realms of life
Drives my wife a little nuts, to be honest.
because you're calm.
Yeah.
That's funny. What do you think about the way you see it helps you be that way? Like, what do you think other security chiefs, directors should look at to be a bit more like you in this sense?
Yeah, we've had major incidents, and my boss is like, "Are you taking this seriously?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, why? If I fly around here like an idiot for the next 20 minutes, would that make you feel better?" If you're doing your best, nobody expects you to be perfect. I think people feel like everybody expects me to be perfect, but people don't expect you to be perfect. People don't expect you to have all the answers. And so it's okay to be humble, or it's okay to be vulnerable and say, you know what, I don't know right now. Let me figure it out. Let me go back and research this. I would rather take a day and come back with the right answer. Every time in my career I've shot from the hip, I've been wrong. Take that time to be sure of your answer as best you can right now. If somebody demands an answer, then I'll give them the answer, but I'll be like, 10 minutes from now, I may change this answer. So I don't put that added stress of always being right, always being the smartest person in the room. I never feel like I'm the smartest person in the room, and I'm okay with that. And I think that helps relieve a lot of stress.
Amazing. Is there something in security that you think you pay a lot of attention to, but others don't?
I think it's that team building, and not my direct team, but the team building with the people that I work with. So I spend time probably every day getting out of my office and walking the floor and just stopping and talking to somebody. And we're not even talking about work. We're not talking about security. We're just talking. You go get a cup of coffee and there's somebody in the coffee room, have a 2-minute conversation with them and find out, hey, I heard you bought a boat, or, whatever it is, and get to know them. Building trust is so important, especially in today's world. They have to trust me to come to me and say, hey, I accidentally clicked on an email. Okay. So what I really try to do is get out of my office every day, meet people, and have those conversations. It doesn't have to be about work, and it doesn't have to be about security. It just has to be about something. And you get to know them as people, and you get to hear their story, and they get to hear your story a little bit. And it builds that trust, so that way when they do something, they feel like they can come to you and not be afraid that, as soon as I tell you I clicked on this link in this email because I forgot for a second, I'm going to get fired. We don't do security through intimidation around here. I never liked those environments, and I'm not going to harbor that. I'm not going to build that kind of environment here. I want people to feel like they can always come to me and tell me, I made a mistake, and that's fine. You made a mistake. Let's fix it. Don't hide it. That's the one thing I don't know if a lot of CISOs do that. They tend to want to, sit in that perch, and that's just not where I'm at.
Interesting. Have you ever been, obviously without any names or anything, but have you ever been part of an organization where security was viewed differently? Like where people were afraid, or on the contrary, where people didn't pay any attention to security?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I've been in those environments. Like I said earlier, I've worked with security teams where they've made we're not happy till you're unhappy. You'd walk in and you say, hey, I'm thinking about, and before you even got the idea out, it was like, no, you're not doing that. I've worked in those kinds of environments, and it's not healthy, right? If there's an issue, I want our teams to come together. I don't care whose problem it is. Let's come together and put our heads together and let's solve it. Hey, I think my team did this. I think this caused our problem. Now, what do we do to get back? Those are the kinds of things I think that we need to make sure we as professionals and IT professionals and security professionals make sure we're doing, and that we're being better at it.
Amazing. Have you ever had something, well, you didn't really do security back then, but you were security. Have you ever seen anything happen due to these sort of dynamics?
Well, yeah, our security team at one of the companies I worked for had made a change the night before. We came in the next morning and the apps are down and the system's not working. And they spent all day saying, no, it's not us. It can't be us. We didn't cause it. And the security manager and I were talking one day, and he goes, I think this is a storage problem. And he runs down and talks to the manager of the storage team. And it's like, the guy that I considered the smartest man in the room, I'll call him George. And I went to George in the afternoon, and I'm the manager of the server teams, right? I've got all 1,500 Windows and Linux servers that I'm responsible for. But I went to him and I was like, hey, are you seeing anything? And he's like, yeah, I saw this error, but nobody will listen to it. And so I was like, oh, okay. So a couple hours later, we're all in this room and we're trying to solve what's going on. And they're like, well, let's do a system restart. That'll fix it. And I said, well, okay, what happens when the system restart doesn't fix it? And they're like, well, we'll figure it out. I said, George is seeing an error. Nobody's listening to him. And so they're like, well, George, and he's a very introverted, kind of a quiet guy. And they're like, well, what are you seeing? And he goes, well, I saw this error come through. And one of the security guys is like, well, that can't be us. We're not causing that. It doesn't work that way. And so he goes up to the whiteboard and he starts drawing it out. The guy's like, it might work that way. We should probably open a ticket with our vendor. So they opened a ticket with the vendor, and the vendor came on, and I don't remember all the specifics in that, but it was like, yeah, this is a known bug. So this is how you get back, right? So within a very short time, everything was back up and running. But we lost almost an entire day of people limping through trying to get work done because nobody would take the time to listen to everybody in the room. And so that's why I say there's plenty of time to assign blame down the road. When there's an issue going on, you got to trust one another. You can just roll your sleeves up and fix it.
Amazing. What would you say to people who are trying to advance in security or that are looking to get into it from some sort of similar field or maybe even from something else completely? How do you see it?
What I would tell them is just take whatever opportunity comes your way. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. That old fake it till you make it kind of a thing. I kind of made a career out of that. Early in my career, I was working for a small computer firm, kind of doing consulting work. And we had this really great salesman, and he would go out and sell a product. And then he'd come in on like Friday afternoon and he'd be like, "Hey, I just sold this product and you're installing it on Monday. Can you do that?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I could do that. I've never worked with this product." Right. So go home, spend that weekend cramming, or time in the lab, figuring out how to do it. So Monday morning I could show up at a customer's site and do that installation. When I stepped into this role, I've never written a security policy in my life. So how do I go about doing that? Well, I'll figure it out. There's resources available to me, and I figure out how to either take an existing policy or write a policy. You got to take those opportunities and figure it out. The person who gave you that opportunity wants you to succeed. If they put you in the role to fail, then they're not a good person, right? So you always assume that they're a good person. So they put you in this role to succeed. So don't be afraid to ask and say, "I'm kind of struggling on where to get started here," or "How do I go about doing this?" And if they know, they'll help you. And if not, they might be able to point you in the direction of where it is. So put yourself out there. Take those chances to fail and take those chances to learn. Failure is learning. That's the biggest thing I'd say to people who are trying to get into security or really any field, if that's what you want to do. Now, I don't want my heart surgeon to fake it till he makes it.
It's a little different.
I want that guy to know. But don't be afraid to stretch yourself and to go beyond what you know. If all you're going to do is what you know, then you're never going to do anything new. And for some people, that's okay. But
Yeah, interesting. Do you feel like people in security are often quite stable and like doing their thing, or is it a lot of like climbing the ladder, sort of?
I've seen both, where people are very happy with their hands on the keyboards and that's what they do. And then there's people that do want to climb and not just go from the tactical to the strategical decision maker. And that's a personality thing, and it's okay. Either way is okay. If you're not comfortable leading people, then don't become a manager. But maybe take the opportunity to find out if leading people is really something you might enjoy. When I made that leap from hands-on to manager, I assumed I would hate writing performance appraisals because I hated writing my own. And I actually kind of enjoy it. I take time. I spend 24 hours on each person. And that 24-hour time I spend thinking about them and what they've done and how they've grown and things like that. Found out I kind of actually enjoy that process. I don't want to do it multiple times a year, but once a year, it's not bad. So yeah, what you think you're gonna like, you may or you may not like, and what you think you're gonna hate, there's a good chance you might actually turn out to like that. So don't be closed-minded.
Hmm. That's a good tip. How do you think being a part of a small security team, or even maybe being a solo security person in a company versus being in a big security team or big company, how do you think these two roles differ from each other?
Well, a lot of it is the number of different hats we have to wear in a small company. There's a lot of different things that can take your eye off the ball when it comes to security, right? Because all of a sudden there's a copier down and I should be reading about this security breach, but we're trying to figure out how to get a copier. Not that I'm the guy figuring out how to fix the copier, but that's taking time and attention away, is talking to my guys and making sure that, get a ticket, whatever you got to do. Where in a large company, but now your footprint is so much bigger. Our external footprint is pretty small, so I don't have to worry as much. I still have to worry, but I don't have to worry as much. As a large multi-billion-dollar company that has 1,000 endpoints or 2,000 endpoints on the internet, I don't have that to really keep my eyes focused or my team focused on all of that. It's just different. I've worked in large companies, I've worked in small companies. Most of my career has been in large companies, and you get a lot more opportunities to learn in a larger company, but it is what you make. And even in small companies, there's lots of opportunities. You just got to be willing to take them.
What do you tell people who look at the security job as someone who's just like warning people about don't click this email?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, we had that quarterly meeting, and I think it was our December quarterly meeting last year. Was all about cybersecurity. And so I kind of took the whole company through a day in the life of what I do and showed them here's the alerts we get from CISA. Here's our patching statistics. Here's a tool I look at to see how many vulnerabilities do we have in the system. And I showed them kind of a before and an after, where I showed them we're up here for the number of vulnerabilities we have in the system. And then all of a sudden, like in one day, there's a massive drop down to here. And I was like, what happened? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, we turned off an old server. We retired an old server that had all of its warts, and we got rid of this one. So look at what it did to our environment. And so they were able to see real time how much better of a security posture we were in just by doing one little change. So being able to educate them on what it is we do in cyber, I tell them if I'm running around here with my hair on fire, we've got lots of problems and it's a bad day for SET SEG. If I'm sitting here drinking coffee, staring at my screen, working on something, it's probably a good day for SET SEG.
But you're also very calm, so maybe you're drinking your coffee, but everything is on fire.
Yeah, that could be too. That could be too.
Interesting. How do you see this field progressing in the future? Like, what will be different in 2 years, in 5 years, 10 years?
I think the rate of change and the rate that information is going to be flowing at us and our ability to go faster and needing to make sure tools and automation and that you're able to sift through the noise to get to what's important is going to become even more critical. There's not fewer bad actors today than there was yesterday. There's more, right? There's always more bad actors, and they're selling their wares and they're creating more bad actors. And so really the key is how do you go faster? I think people are going to have to learn how to do a lot more coding than I've ever had to do in my lifetime. I worked for one company and the CIO used to always tell us that we're a tech company that happens to move freight. He's like, every company is now a tech company that happens to do this other thing. And it's really kind of true when you think about it, because, it's technology driving and a technology letting people move freight, whatever, build cars, whatever it is that you're doing. Technology is what is allowing you to do that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think, too, about like CrowdStrike, and I think about VMware revamping their licensing. That had a huge impact on us, and we're adjusting to that. But I think it's going to change a lot of thoughts, right? A lot of thoughts were like, we'll just outsource this. We'll send this to the cloud. We'll do this. And all of a sudden now tons of servers and workstations around the world went down because CrowdStrike released a patch that went bad. So, okay, how do we prevent that from happening in the future? I think a lot of companies are taking some time now to probably reevaluate. And do we want to be 98% virtualized? Do we want all of our eggs in the VMware basket or the whatever basket? So it's going to be interesting to see how this all falls out in the next few years.
Interesting. I have one more question for you. I'm actually curious what your answer will be. But what do you like most about the security field? Like, it seems like from not being in it, you were always quite attracted to it until you became one of them.
Yeah, I had that lobotomy, and no, that's what I told everybody when I went from being a tech to being a manager. I had to have a lobotomy done first, and then I was a good manager after that. No, what do I enjoy the most? I think it's just a challenge. I've always been a person who likes challenges. And, I'm relatively late in my career to take on a challenge. It would have been very easy to stay where I was and just coast. But that's not what I want to do. Right? If I'm going to work, I want to be challenged. I want to learn. I want to expand. I want to grow. I think that's the biggest thing I enjoy about this role is I'm not the smartest person in the room and I don't know the most, but that doesn't stop me from trying to gain and acquire that knowledge. I did my CISSP last year and it was a way to challenge myself. I did it in 30 days, start to finish. So, I wanted to be done in a month and I got it done in a month.
How much does it usually take?
There are people that study for years.
Wow.
Probably 6 months to a year normally to do the studying, but I did a boot camp and then I spent every night studying and all Memorial Day weekend I spent studying and I went in on Tuesday morning and I passed the test the first time. So, it's just that challenge. To me, if you're not challenged, then you might as well just go ahead and retire. Go drive a golf cart or a lawnmower on a golf course or something like that.
It doesn't sound terrible, It doesn't sound that bad.
No, there are days, welcome to Walmart kind of a thing, but my days fly by and the weeks fly by, and then the months fly by, and then a year's gone by, and it's like, wow, and then you take that time to stop and reflect and think about all we got done in that past year, and make sure that you take that time to celebrate your accomplishments. And that's one thing I don't know that we do enough in tech, is celebrating our accomplishments and saying, this was a big deal and we got it done, and very little impact or no impact to the company. I don't think we do that enough because our minds are set. We're already on to that next thing. Good to take some time for that reflection. And I think that's what I mentioned. I enjoy writing the performance appraisals for my team. It gives me the chance to sit back and reflect on all that they got accomplished. Because it's so easy to say we didn't get anything done. And then at the end of the day or the end of the week, the month, the year, you're like, holy crap, we got a lot done.
Yeah, maybe not exactly what you planned, but a lot.
But we got a lot done, right?
So, Scott, thank you so much. That was so interesting. And I feel like I understood a lot about the way you see security, and also the way it's like when you're in a team that is relatively small, but not very small, but how different it is from when you're in a big organization. And it sounds like you're really enjoying it, and that your team is also getting to see like the best of you in that context.
Well, I hope they're seeing the best of me.
Sounds like it. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. I really enjoyed our time together.